Have you ever looked at something broken or thrown away and imagined it becoming beautiful again? Today, we're turning forgotten junk into tiny garden treasures, painted rock animals, cable spool tables, and drum planters that can transform any backyard into pure wonder. Welcome to Simply DIY, where small hands create big ideas, and every project proves that beauty can come from anywhere. These images are only meant to inspire you. If something here sparks an idea, use what you have and make it your own. That's what true creativity is about. And before we begin, maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind every frame, there's a story, a dream, and a family trying to keep that dream alive. Your like, your comment, your subscribe, it's more than support. It's hope. It's connection. It's everything. Thank you for being here, and for seeing me. There's something deeply comforting about a garden that smiles back at you. As the morning sun gently warms the soil, tiny painted creatures peek from the garden's edge, a row of ladybugs, turtles, frogs, and bees resting quietly on smooth river stones. Each one, shaped by patient hands and colored with care, brings a soft whisper of joy into the space between flowers and earth. You don't need expensive ornaments or fancy garden tools to make this magic happen. Just a handful of stones, a few colors of paint, and an afternoon filled with imagination. Start by collecting smooth rocks, the kind you'd find by a stream or near your backyard path. Wash them clean, let them dry, and give them a new life. Maybe your stone becomes a curious frog with wide green eyes, or perhaps a sleepy turtle resting under a marigold bloom. When you place these tiny artworks along your garden border, something changes. The border no longer just divides the soil, it tells a story. It becomes a parade of handmade friends, standing guard over your flowers, vegetables, or herbs. The glossy paint glows in the sunlight after a morning dew, and even a passerby can't help but stop and smile. This kind of DIY project doesn't ask for perfection. It invites you to slow down, to listen to the quiet rhythm of your garden, to enjoy creating something small yet meaningful. Because sometimes, beauty isn't about what you buy, it's about what you make with your own hands and heart. When the day fades and the air grows still, those tiny painted animals will stay, keeping the memory of your touch and the color of your laughter alive in the garden's gentle soil. The afternoon sun leans softly over a quiet backyard, and in one forgotten corner stands an old rusty drum, a relic of the past, waiting for a second chance. With a little creativity, it becomes something extraordinary, a home for life to grow. A place where fiery red chilies and sunlit tomatoes rise toward the sky, thriving from something once tossed away. It begins simply. You clean the drum, cut it neatly in half, and give it a fresh coat of weatherproof paint. Maybe soft cream, maybe sage green, maybe the color of sunrise rust. Punch a few holes at the bottom for drainage, then fill it with a mixture of fertile soil and compost that smells like rain and earth. When you plant the young seedlings, press the soil around their roots gently, like tucking in a child before sleep. As weeks pass, the garden transforms. Tomato vines climb gracefully up a wooden trellis, their leaves trembling under the light breeze. Bright red fruits glisten between layers of green. Next to them, chili plants stand proud, small, fierce, and glowing like tiny lanterns in the sun. Bees wander between blossoms, and the air hums with quiet abundance. These upcycled drum planters don't just save space, they bring purpose back to what was once waste. Perfect for small gardens, patios, or even a tiny balcony, they add color, height, and harmony to your outdoor space. You'll find yourself watering them at dusk, feeling proud of how something old became a source of fresh flavor and beauty. And as the harvest ripens, every tomato and chili carries a silent story of hands that refuse to throw things away, of imagination that turned trash into nourishment. This is more than gardening. It's a gentle reminder that renewal always begins with care. In the quiet stillness of a backyard afternoon, a once-forgotten wooden cable spool finds a new story to tell. Its surface, once rough and splintered, now glows softly under the touch of sunlight. Someone has seen not just a discarded piece of wood, but a chance to create something warm, something alive, a patio table where memories will soon gather. The transformation begins with imagination. A little sanding, a stroke of paint, and what was once a piece of industrial scrap becomes the centerpiece of a cozy outdoor space. Its circular form feels timeless, welcoming conversation the way a campfire does. People naturally gather around it. The wooden grains, still visible beneath the paint, whisper of its history, while the scent of varnish mingles with the fresh air. There's a pot of herbs resting on top, its green leaves swaying gently in the breeze. A glass of lemonade catches the light beside it. It's simple, imperfect, and real, just like every beautiful thing we build with our own hands. That's the soul of DIY, turning ordinary materials into extraordinary comfort. What makes this idea so practical isn't just the charm of upcycling, it's how adaptable it is. A spool can be a coffee table, a flower stand, even a craft corner for small tools or garden seeds. Add small wheels underneath, and it becomes portable. Paint it in soft whites for a coastal look, or deep walnut for a rustic touch. Every choice reflects the maker's personality. And when evening comes, and the first stars shimmer above, this humble table transforms once again. It becomes a place for laughter, for stories, for the quiet sound of teacups meeting wood. In its simplicity lies a truth, that beauty doesn't need perfection. It only needs purpose, and a heart willing to create it. There's something delightful about walking through a garden where tiny red ladybugs seem to guard every flower. Yet these are not insects, they're hand-painted stones, rescued from the earth, given a second life through color and imagination. Each one carries the fingerprint of its maker, a little imperfect, a little playful, but utterly full of charm. Creating them is as simple as it is joyful. You start with smooth rocks, the kind that fit gently in your palm. Wash away the dust, then paint them bright red, leaving a curved black line down the middle like tiny folded wings. Add little dots, a pair of white eyes, and wait as the paint dries under the open sky. In that stillness, you'll feel something wonderful, a quiet satisfaction that only handmade things can bring. Once finished, line them along the garden's edge. They'll form a cheerful border that not only separates soil from path, but adds a sense of story, as if a parade of ladybugs decided to settle in your yard. Children will smile, guests will pause, and even the dullest corner of your garden will start to hum with personality. The beauty of this idea lies in its simplicity. You don't need a workshop or power tools, just patience, a few brushes, and your imagination. These painted stones hold up well in rain and sunlight, but you can always add a thin coat of clear varnish for protection, letting them shine even after the seasons change. In the end, it's not just about decoration. It's about what it awakens in you, that childlike sense of wonder that sees beauty in the smallest things. A handful of stones, a splash of color, and a moment of stillness. And suddenly, your garden has a heartbeat. Sometimes beauty begins with what others leave behind. A handful of forgotten stones, a fence weathered by sun and rain, and suddenly, an artist's canvas appears right in your backyard. There's no rush, no pressure here. Just quiet moments with a brush, a few colors, and the sound of birds echoing through the air. Each painted rock becomes a tiny window of joy, a butterfly with bright wings, a sunflower that never fades, a smiling face that greets you every morning. Hanging or mounted along the fence, they turn plain wooden planks into a cheerful gallery of recycled wonder. The dull brown transforms into a story told through colors that catch the eye and the heart alike. You don't need to be an artist to create this. The beauty lies in imperfection, the brushstrokes that wander, the colors that mix unexpectedly. Start with stones from your yard, smooth them clean, and let your imagination play. Maybe you paint a bird perched on a branch, or a small house under the moon. Add hooks or strong adhesive to mount them, and soon your fence will bloom with color, season after season. It's a simple act, really, giving purpose to what was once waste. But somehow, as you paint, you begin to see things differently. That old fence isn't just a boundary anymore. It's an expression of care, a quiet rebellion against the idea of throwing beauty away. And when evening comes, as the sun dips behind the garden, your painted stones glow softly in the fading light. They remind you of something gentle yet powerful, that art doesn't always belong in galleries. Sometimes, it belongs right where you live, whispering softly from your backyard fence that creativity never truly dies. It just needs a place to begin again. There's a quiet kind of beauty in growing something with your own hands, especially when it begins with something once forgotten. A weathered metal drum, maybe dented, maybe rusted at the edges, stands ready to be reborn. Cut it in half, paint it softly in the color of dawn or moss or seafoam, and suddenly it becomes a cradle of green life, a small herb garden that smells like home. The air feels fresher here. Mint leaves glisten with dew, basil releases its sweet aroma when brushed by your fingertips, and rosemary stands tall like a tiny forest in sunlight. Each herb tells its own story, of warmth, of comfort, of care. Together, they form a living patchwork, a reminder that even in the smallest corners, nature thrives when given love and space. Making one of these mini gardens is simpler than it looks. Start by cleaning and cutting an old drum safely in half, sanding the edges smooth. Add a few drainage holes at the bottom, then fill it with rich soil and compost. Herbs don't need much, just sunlight, water, and your gentle attention. Arrange them in harmony, tall ones like rosemary at the back, delicate mint and parsley near the edge where they spill gracefully over the rim. What's beautiful about this idea is how forgiving it is. Even a small patio or balcony can hold 2 or 3 of these planters, turning dull metal into a vibrant landscape of scent and color. You can paint each drum differently, matching your garden's tone or your mood. Some people even add chalk labels or wooden signs, little personal touches that make the garden uniquely theirs. As evening falls, the herbs shimmer in golden light, their fragrance drifting through the air. You cut a few leaves for dinner, grateful that something so simple could bring so much joy. This is what DIY truly means, not just creating, but reconnecting. Finding purpose in what's old, beauty in what's ordinary, and peace in the rhythm of things growing quietly beside you. Sometimes the best furniture isn't found in a store, it's built by hand, from something that once had a different purpose. A heavy wooden cable spool, forgotten behind a workshop or warehouse, can be reborn as a chair or stool that feels like it was meant to belong in your garden all along. Its circular form, its solid texture, there's poetry in the way old materials hold new stories. Imagine a small patio bathed in afternoon light. 2 rounded stools stand beside a matching table, their wooden grains glowing softly beneath the touch of sun. A pot of flowers sits at the center, a cup of tea beside it, and the air smells faintly of fresh paint and earth. It's calm, simple, and completely your own. To create a set like this, you don't need perfection, only patience. Start by separating the spool's side panels and sanding them smooth. A touch of paint or varnish adds protection and personality. You can stack pieces together, add cushions for comfort, or keep the rustic texture raw for a farmhouse feel. Even the imperfections, a dent here, a scratch there, only make it more authentic, more human. These spool chairs fit perfectly in small patios or tiny backyards where space is precious. They're sturdy, weather-resistant, and full of charm. And if you enjoy variety, each one can be painted in a different shade. Mint green for freshness, deep walnut for warmth, or even a splash of bright yellow for a playful touch. But beyond their look, what truly makes them special is the spirit behind them. The idea that creativity can turn what's overlooked into something welcoming. When evening arrives and you sit back on your handmade chair, the world feels a little slower, a little softer. You'll realize that sometimes comfort doesn't come from what's new, but from what you've given a second life. There's a quiet genius in learning how to make space where there seems to be none. In a small backyard, a narrow patio, or even a forgotten garden corner, creativity can bloom as beautifully as any flower. This is where the vertical planter tower comes to life. A sculpture of growth made from recycled drums, stacked one above another, each layer bursting with green. At first glance, it's just a pile of metal. But with care, a little balance and imagination, it becomes a tower of life, a living column that transforms empty air into something lush and alive. The base holds flowers that greet you every morning, the middle supports herbs that scent the breeze, and the top cradles vegetables reaching toward the sun. Creating it is both art and practicality. Cut or stack old drums, making sure each layer drains well. Add a sturdy metal or wooden rod through the center for support. A spine that keeps your garden steady even when the wind whispers through the leaves. Paint each drum in a different tone, pastel blues, gentle greens, maybe even a touch of yellow, and suddenly it feels like something out of a countryside dream. The beauty of this design lies in its simplicity. It's ideal for those who live in small homes, where space is precious but the desire for nature never fades. Every inch of soil counts here, every seed has purpose. Water flows downward gently, nourishing every layer, teaching us that sustainability can also be beautiful. When you stand before your finished tower, there's a sense of quiet pride. You've taken something industrial, something forgotten, and turned it into a vertical story of renewal. In each leaf and petal, there's proof that creativity doesn't just build gardens, it builds peace. A reminder that even in the smallest corners, life always finds a way to grow upward, toward the light. In every garden, there's a hidden kind of magic waiting to be discovered, and sometimes, all it takes is a handful of stones and a touch of imagination to bring it to life. Picture a small corner of your backyard where moss carpets the ground like velvet, where flowers bloom in miniature, and where tiny stone creatures rest quietly under the shade of leaves. This is your own fairy garden, a world within a world, built not with grand designs, but with heart. You begin simply. A patch of soil becomes your stage. You collect smooth stones, small twigs, a few pebbles from a forgotten path. With gentle strokes of paint, a dull rock turns into a cheerful turtle, a sleepy owl, or a ladybug with glossy wings. Around them, you build a village. Tiny mushroom houses made from bottle caps, bridges from old popsicle sticks, perhaps even a small pond lined with blue glass beads. Every element feels alive, playful, and inviting. This kind of project is more than decoration. It's storytelling through your hands. It invites children to imagine, adults to slow down, and anyone who passes by to smile. The trick is in the details. Let moss grow naturally, choose plants that stay small, and keep the layout balanced yet wild. A fairy garden thrives in imperfection. It feels real because it looks like nature whispered it into being. When dusk falls, a soft solar lamp or two can turn the scene into a dream. The tiny critters cast gentle shadows, and the colors seem to glow as if the fairies themselves had just passed through. You can almost feel the hush of evening blending with the scent of earth and leaves. And that's the beauty of this idea. It doesn't need much space, only imagination. In a world that moves too fast, a fairy garden teaches you to pause, to look closer, and to remember that wonder is not lost. It's simply waiting, right there in the soil beneath your fingertips. Every gardener knows that tools have a rhythm of their own. They disappear when you need them, reappear when you don't, tucked behind pots, forgotten in corners. But with a little imagination, even this chaos can be turned into beauty. Imagine taking an old cable spool, something heavy and worn, and giving it a second life as the heart of your garden's organization. Its round form becomes a symbol of order and renewal. You cut, polish, and smooth the edges until the wood glows again beneath your hands. Add a few shelves to its surface, or mount it vertically to hold small pots, seed packets, gloves, and shears. Each tool finds its place, each curve of the spool feels purposeful, not just storage, but sculpture. The sound of wood meeting metal hooks, the soft scrape of brushes and trowels finding their spots, feels satisfying, grounding. The beauty of this design lies not in its perfection, but in its practicality. The spool's circular surface makes it easy to reach everything you need, even in the tightest garden corner. You can attach small wheels underneath, transforming it into a rolling tool station, or mount it against a fence for a rustic wall organizer. A coat of varnish protects the wood from the weather, and a touch of paint can match the soul of your garden. Warm brown for earth lovers, sage green for the quiet dreamers, sky blue for those who like a touch of calm. And soon, you'll notice something subtle yet profound. Your tools aren't just cleaner or easier to find. They begin to feel like part of your ritual, resting neatly after a day's work, ready to help you again when morning comes. This is what DIY truly celebrates. Not simply the creation of objects, but the creation of harmony between your hands, your space, and your daily rhythm. A simple wooden spool, once forgotten, becomes a keeper of stories, of seasons, and of everything that grows beneath your care. There's a certain calm that comes from working with small things. A tin can, a brush of paint, a handful of soil, and a tiny green life waiting to grow. From what others might call trash, a touch of imagination can create something unexpectedly beautiful. In this simple idea, recycled tins and painted stones become more than decorations. They become a quiet conversation between art and nature. Picture a windowsill or small patio bathed in morning light. Rows of recycled cans, once dull and forgotten, now shine softly in shades of cream, mint, and pale yellow. Inside them, succulents rise proudly: aloe, echeveria, jade, their leaves plump with life, storing sunlight in silence. Beside each one sits a small painted stone, a smiling turtle, a tiny ladybug, a frog resting peacefully. Together, they make the space feel alive, personal, and full of warmth. Making these planters is easy, even for a beginner. Clean the old tins, add a few small holes at the bottom for drainage, then paint them however your heart desires: rustic, modern, or playful. Wrap some with jute or twine if you love texture, or leave the metal bare for a minimalist look. When you fill them with soil and tuck in the succulents, you'll notice how quickly the scene transforms, from ordinary to inviting, from metal to life. What makes this project special is how accessible it is. You don't need a large garden, just a little sunlight and creativity. Succulents are forgiving. They thrive with little water, needing only attention now and then. The painted stones bring personality. They tell your story, your humor, your color. And as the day fades and the light softens, those tiny planters still glow with quiet joy. Each one holds a reminder that beauty doesn't always grow from the perfect, the polished, or the new. Sometimes, it blooms from the patience to see value where others see none. That's the essence of DIY. Not just crafting objects, but crafting meaning. There's something magical about walking through a garden where every border feels alive. Each stone along the edge isn't just a rock, it's a character, a little guardian of the flowers. A smiling frog, a sleepy turtle, a bee with tiny painted wings, or a curious cat gazing at the petals above. Together, they create a story in color and texture, turning the quiet corners of your backyard into something playful and full of heart. This kind of DIY project is where creativity meets peace. You don't need perfection, just a few smooth stones, some paint, and an idea. Start by choosing a theme that speaks to you. Maybe you love forest creatures, or perhaps insects and butterflies bring you joy. Wash the stones, let them dry, and paint each one with patience. Give them personality, a cheeky smile, sleepy eyes, or bold stripes. When the paint dries, seal them with a thin coat of varnish so their colors can endure sun and rain alike. Then comes the most satisfying part, arranging them. Line them along a flower bed, place them near your walkway, or circle them around a tree base. Each one finds its home among the soil and leaves. When sunlight touches their glossy surfaces, they glimmer softly, drawing the eye and warming the heart. What makes this project special isn't just how it looks, it's how it feels. These painted stones invite conversation. They spark curiosity in children and admiration from visitors. And for you, they serve as gentle reminders that joy doesn't always need grand gestures. Sometimes, it's in the small details you create with your own hands, in colors that reflect your mood, in shapes that carry your laughter. So when you pass by your garden tomorrow and see those little faces peeking from the ground, you'll know, it's not just edging you've made. You've built a world of stories, one stone at a time. There's a certain satisfaction in watching something grow upward, strong, green, and full of promise. Tomatoes, perhaps more than any other garden plant, hold that quiet kind of wonder. They start small and shy, but with care and sunlight, they climb toward the sky, bearing the reward of your patience. And with a little creativity, even an old drum can become their perfect home. Imagine standing in your backyard, sunlight warming the tops of two painted metal drums, their colors faded but proud. From their open mouths rise tall wooden trellises, and from the soil, vines weave their way up like gentle hands reaching for light. Clusters of red and green tomatoes hang between the leaves, heavy with life. A soft breeze stirs them, and the air carries that faint scent of soil and fruit, the kind that tells you something real is growing here. Turning a used drum into a vertical planter is simpler than it looks. Clean it well, cut the top open, and make drainage holes below. A good layer of compost-rich soil will be your foundation, the kind that holds both air and moisture. Then build your trellis, bamboo, wood, or even old metal rods, something sturdy enough for the vines to lean on. As the plant grows, guide it gently, tie its stems with twine, and let time do its quiet work. What's special about this design isn't just how it saves space, it's how it invites abundance into small places. Even a narrow patio or balcony can host a drum or two, turning unused corners into vertical gardens of color and nourishment. The drums, once symbols of industry, now hum softly with life. Holding more than soil, they hold renewal. And when the first ripe tomatoes begin to blush in the sunlight, you'll feel that deep, familiar joy that every gardener knows. The moment when patience turns into harvest. You'll remember the rust of the old drum, the first handful of soil, and the climb of green tendrils. Because sometimes, beauty isn't found in the grand or the new, It's found in what you give a second chance to grow. In the quiet of a late afternoon, when sunlight filters through the leaves and the world begins to slow, there's nothing quite as comforting as a small garden corner designed for peace. Here, simplicity reigns: a pair of chairs, a few potted plants, and at the center, a humble cable spool reborn as a coffee table. Once used to hold wires and cables, now it holds something more precious: moments of stillness. The beauty of this DIY idea lies not in extravagance but in intention. Take an old wooden spool, smooth its surface, and paint it in a color that feels like you. Perhaps the calm of white, the depth of walnut, or the serenity of sage green. Add a layer of protective varnish to let it withstand the rain and sun, and suddenly, you have a centerpiece that invites conversation and quiet reflection alike. Around it, you can let nature tell its own story. Arrange a few pots of herbs or trailing vines. Place a small rug beneath for warmth. Maybe string soft fairy lights overhead. This space doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. A place to sit with a cup of coffee, to write a thought that's been lingering in your mind, or simply to listen to the wind moving gently through the leaves. What makes this project so timeless is how easily it adapts. Whether your yard is wide or barely enough for 2 chairs, the cable spool table fits right in. It's sturdy, sustainable, and full of quiet character. You can even use the spool's hollow core for hidden storage, a basket of garden tools, an extra blanket for cool evenings, or a few favorite books waiting for slow Sundays. And when night falls, and the fairy lights above start to shimmer, this tiny corner becomes something else: a sanctuary. A reminder that comfort isn't about size or luxury. It's about creating beauty with your own hands and finding peace in the space you've built. Sometimes, a small table and a quiet garden are all you need to feel the world pause, just long enough to breathe again. There's a simple kind of joy in watching your garden change with the seasons. The colors, the textures, the moods shifting quietly with time. But what if you could mirror that transformation through something made by your own hands? That's where seasonal painted rocks come in. Tiny pieces of art that let your garden tell a new story every few months. In spring, imagine soft tones of pink and green scattered among blooming flowers, rocks painted with daisies, butterflies, and the first signs of new life. Summer brings brighter hues, sunshine yellows, ocean blues, and little strawberries painted like gems hiding between the plants. Then autumn arrives with its deep oranges and browns, pumpkins and golden leaves resting near the soil. And when winter's chill settles in, snowflakes, stars, and soft whites replace them, creating a calm, festive rhythm that even the bare branches seem to appreciate. This isn't just about decoration, it's about mindfulness. Each time you swap the stones, you pause to notice how nature has changed. You feel the air grow warmer or cooler, see how the light shifts across the garden. It's a small ritual that reconnects you with the passage of time. Making them is as easy as it is rewarding. Smooth river stones or leftover garden rocks are your canvas. Acrylic paint works best. It holds color even under rain and sunlight. You can coat them with a thin layer of sealant for protection, ensuring they last through every season. Store them in a small box when not in use, and when the next season arrives, bring them back out, refreshed and ready to tell their part of the story. What's beautiful about this idea is its balance of creativity and continuity. Your garden becomes a living calendar, one that speaks without words, showing change not through what fades, but through what you create anew. And as you place each painted stone by hand, you'll feel it, that quiet sense of belonging to something larger, something both timeless and tender.